every kid has to run their own race. So what happens is all of the kids in every grade, they're invested in them all growing at the same time, which doesn't happen. The priority for parents are their children. The priority for the coaches is the entire program. When we try to be transparent, it's because we want to make sure that there's no surprises.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Please believe it or not, I'm still a cream of the crop. I was just until the age of 18 on the charts. Wasn't even dreaming this far. Believe who you are, the sun doesn't even know it's a star.
Welcome back to Early Retirement, the high school hoops coaching podcast. Today's episode is being brought to you by My Jersey. Visit myjerseydesigns.com and they will take care of all your digital jersey replica needs.
All right, Coach, tryout season is here. So we were hearing some feedback from our first episode, which if you didn't get a chance, go back and listen, whether it's on our YouTube channel, it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts. Episode 1 of season 4 is out, talked about building a program. How do we establish a culture? And Coach Fletcher broke down, really got into the nitty gritty of how he did that, specifically at Central Dolphin. And you had a lot of feedback. You said, hey, Matt, we got a lot of people saying you got to do an episode about tryouts. So we know for a lot of coaches listening and probably parents that tryouts may have just wrapped or maybe they're still going on for middle school. But regardless, one of the biggest questions that you probably heard from parents all the time or that parents are asking is how many players can a coach actually play in a game? So that's what we're diving into in this episode. I know we've talked about, Coach Fletcher, you mentioned last episode about, hey, we're probably going to release an episode every other week, but really this one felt pressing to get into. So Coach Fletcher, you've been through this process more times than me for sure, and more times than most people listening. So yes. How about you break it down, walk us through playing time, roster size, players and parents, and how we can manage all those emotions. So I think first, we probably should just start out with some simple math. There's only 32 minutes in a high school, a varsity and JV game.
Yeah.
And then, man, you reminded me of this. This is wild. But junior high games, ninth grade games, there's only 24 minutes. Yep. So and that's really not that many minutes to go around. So how many players can truly get meaningful minutes in a high school game?
I want to first preface this conversation with this is more for parents and prospective players than anything else. In the previous seasons, there were conversations from coaches, and they would say the 2 hardest days during the basketball season was the last day, right, when you lose your last game. Or if you're fortunate to win the state championship, then you win it. But the last day of the season and the day that they had to make cuts. And making cuts is not something that anybody looks forward to. It is really difficult. It's like a gift and a curse, so to speak, because the gift is the season is about to begin. But the challenge behind it is there are definitely some emotions involved there, and you have to separate yourself from some players that really had aspirations of being on the team. So let me lead with that and understand that this conversation specifically is definitely one of those that my experience is what's leading my perspective more than anything else. It is not the be-all, end-all. It is not every coach thinks this way, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of coaches will understand the perspective. So, as you mentioned, it's not a lot of minutes. There are not a lot of minutes for players in all of these situations. I want to start with a story from when I coached middle school. I was coaching 8th grade. This was back in 2011. So I had already coached rec. I coached some travel. I coached some AAU. I was a grad assistant at the collegiate level. So I had a lot of experiences. Yeah. But at the 8th grade tryouts, there were a lot of kids there. And I remember talking to the head coach because the head coach was very involved in all aspects of the program. And he said, if you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of parent issues, just keep 8 because 8 is a good number. And even though 24 minutes is still not a lot of time, 7 or 8 is a good number to get most players some minutes. Okay. And I was under the belief that especially at the middle school level, we're still in the developmental phases. And I knew that if we could keep a few more kids, we could potentially have more guys getting better and having more available to the head coach when the time came for them to try out for JV and varsity. And so he was like, listen, 8. And I said, well, what if I want to keep 12? He said, I don't want to have to deal with the stuff that comes with you keeping 12. So what
Sure.
I decided to do is player 9 through 12. I sat down with them one-on-one and I talked to them about the fact that they might not ever see a minute of the junior high game. Then I met with their parents and I said, hey, I really believe that these guys, like, it could go either way because it's still middle school, developmentally, especially physically, is different for everybody.
Definitely.
Listen, I think this experience will be great for them if you just allow me to coach them up and help them get better. I don't know how this is going to wind up, but I think that they will be better off being with us than not. And I was fortunate enough that I got buy-in from everybody. The kids were cool. They wanted to be a part of it, and the parents were totally fine.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it was, I could not have asked for a better situation. And I'm glad that the parents trusted in what we were looking to do. And so, long story short, we played a lot of games and those dudes never got in. And I never got any blowback from the families or anything. When it was all said and done, though, every one of those guys, not only did they have an opportunity to play, but all of them had a chance to start at least one game during that season.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I have to tell you, one of the dudes in at the school, it was a big school, so there were 2 middle schools. So you think to yourself, somewhere between 12, like almost 24 kids in that grade. Eventually, one of those guys that were in the 9 to 12 range wound up starting as a senior in high school.
Man.
Right. And I think that
awesome.
if he didn't play in 8th grade, like, I don't know that he ever comes back to basketball.
Right.
You know? And so I know that if everybody is bought into the idea and the understanding of what this whole experience is supposed to be, then good things can happen. Sadly, this is an anomaly because it has, since I've been a head coach, this never has happened. So I'll move it forward because that was a story.
Yeah,
there's
a bunch of follow up to that, but
go ahead,
like you said, to keep it moving. So, I mean, I love that you pushed back a little bit. You know, I guess the head coach was like, hey, keep 8. I guess you said those conversations went really well with parents. Have you found, I'm getting a little bit into the details of maybe those conversations, but have you found in those types of conversations for parents who are listening that from a coach's perspective, when you're clear, you know, we've heard the cliche saying sometimes that clear is kind. Like the clearer you are, has that been more helpful? Or is it, you know, has it been like, did you sit down with the guys who were 9 through 12 and say, hey, are you okay with the fact that you may not see the floor all season? And did you kind of put it in their hands, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I was very transparent. Because one thing is for sure, I did not want to have parent issues. And I knew that the head coach was like, listen, the easiest way to not have them is to ensure that, because there's a belief that in school ball, especially at the younger levels, that everybody should have an opportunity to play. And I'm not from that school of thought particularly. I think that as soon as you get to school ball, so junior high on up, there's this competition thing that has to happen. That is how growth happens. If everybody is guaranteed a rotation, are they necessarily going to do all of the things necessary for them to be better or contribute to the team? Or that's just what I believe. And I have not been inaccurate up to this point. But I will tell you that was in 2011. Since then, a lot has changed. And I know that when I'm now at Central Dauphin, because now it's a big school, because we're going to talk about sizes of schools too, because that plays a part. But when you're at a big school and you have that same type of situation, we have parent meetings before tryouts and we talk about what the expectations are. And hey, it's 24 minutes. It is impossible. If we have more than 8 players, and especially when we get beyond 10, if we have more players than that, it is impossible for those dudes to get into games. And if you are signing up, because we say, like, listen, if you don't think this is for you, if you don't know that you can support your child, then we can just cut ties here. But if you're signing up to say, you know what, I want my kid to be a part of this experience, what have you, then that needs to be supported all the way through. Because all that happens after that, are major disruptions. And then it proves that the people weren't necessarily in on the process of development. They were
Yeah.
in on, like, my kids got to play.
Exactly. And that kind of answers another follow-up I had here, which is, so you get into, let's just, put that scenario into play right now where you're at Central Dolphin, you have their parent meetings, hey, you made the team, but this is probably your playing time. This is what it looks like for you this season. And then you get to middle of the season and it's either from the player, hey, coach isn't giving me a shot. He's not giving me a chance. Or from parent saying, hey, coach, you're not giving my kid a shot. You're not giving my kid a chance. What does that follow-up look like from you as a coach? You're trying not only to manage your rotation and figure out your rotation, play those 7 or 8 guys, but then what do the conversations look like, those follow-ups?
We try our best, and we always are very upfront with playing time meetings. And obviously, the player needs to initiate those meetings. More times than not, the player is wanting to do the things that they need to do to help the team. The parent is usually not as happy. And so we stay away from any time a parent is like, hey, can we meet separately? Or I want to initiate the meeting. Like, we're not going to do that. But the follow-up is always, you have to beat out the guy in front of you. And so when games happen and someone comes off the bench and they don't have as much leeway as the other guys, that's where challenges happen. But that stuff is all earned in practice, okay? How minutes are earned, how rotations happen, all of those things are earned in practice, and those things happen every day. And a lot of times, everyone else outside of the player, they don't get an opportunity to see all of those things. And so they don't have a full grasp. They just know what they see on game days, which is not fair or accurate of a depiction of what is happening across the board.
Yep.
So I did not get a chance to go back and just talk about roster size. When I was at Camp Hill, right, the roster size for JV varsity was 18. We had 2 vans because there were no buses.
Brutal, man. Like, looking back, that is absolutely brutal that they make those. I don't know, man. That's a different conversation. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. And so, like, when you have a small school, and especially a school like that, there's no buses at all.
True.
And so
very true.
That's how we do things. And so for somebody like me, oh my gosh, every road game was stressful for me because you have 2 different vehicles that are being driven by coaches. That's a whole nother animal that has nothing to do with roster size, except for the fact that 18, we were not going to have more than 18 guys because we could not. And there was something very comforting in that, because when it came down to numbers and whenever we needed to make cuts at whatever level, we only can keep 18. I'm sorry. Your senior year, my first year there, we had a gigantic junior class. There were 3 seniors, 2 sophomores, 8 juniors, and 8 freshmen. And if you add those numbers up, it's more than 18. and so we didn't have a freshman team, and that meant, and those 8 freshmen, they were all talented.
They could all
play, but they all couldn't play on that team. And so we decided, and I've pictured this, we have 8 ninth graders. They all grew up together. It's a small school. They all are super close. And now we have to take 3 of those guys. And since we don't have a freshman team, and ninth grade is considered junior high, and so 3 of those guys had to play on the junior high team if we were going to keep them.
Right.
And that was very tough for all of us. It was tough for us as coaches to make a decision like that, but we wanted to keep them. And so that was a way to keep them in the program, let them develop. They could go out there and really physically not have any challenges, but now I can work on whatever my skill set is that is lacking or not enough for me to make the JV varsity team. And then, like what happened, eventually those dudes wound up playing JV and varsity, and it was super fantastic. But the start was tough, and I'm pretty sure well, I know for a fact the parents weren't happy, but...
Well, but that brings up man, I love that you use that example, because I hear from a lot of coaches, high school coaches in this area, that it's that classic, like, do I keep juniors, 11th graders who are not really going to play so I can develop my freshman and sophomore, or, but like in that case, like you said, you had a strong junior class and a strong freshman class. So it'll put you in a weird spot. Like, you had a lot of juniors who were going to play, and you had a lot of freshmen who were going to play. So yeah, that was a weird spot. For sure remember that.
And it's different. I think coaches at smaller schools have a different situation than coaches at bigger schools.
Okay. Yeah.
From our perspective at Central Dauphin, if we have a junior, they are only in play for varsity. They are not in play for JV because of the fact that we still have to worry about the pipeline. Like, we have to worry about development
Sure.
of the younger dudes.
Sure.
At that stage of the game, like, we couldn't do it. There are some schools, some bigger schools that play in our league that will sometimes have juniors on JV,
Okay.
but for us, like, we couldn't do it. Whereas at Camp Hill, that year with all of those juniors, we had quite a few of them playing JV.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that's another one of those very nuanced conversations that has to happen. But I would say, again, for the player and the families involved, when tryouts end, which at this point, when this is airing, tryouts for varsity and JV are done, and you should all have an idea of what the coach is thinking, at least to start the season.
Got it.
And so if you are one of the people that aren't in the rotation mix to start and they let you know that, and you're signing up to say, you know what, I want to give it a shot. I want to be a part of this team. I want to do those things. The best thing you could do is just allow that to happen.
That's
And
great. That's
that
great.
is the thing that doesn't happen enough. And I understand, right? It's when the lights turn on and everybody is out there in the student section. I mean, back in the Camp Hill days, I don't know that there was a better environment. And I'm sure,
Yeah, well, it was, man. It was solid back in those days. It was solid.
dude, listen here, the Camp Hill Crazies. Listen,
Shout
all
out
I'm
Camp Hill
saying is,
Crazies.
yes. Shout out to the Camp Hill Crazies. And we will get all types of comments of people from other schools. The other students say, hey, okay, I'm just telling you, I know that when we played home games at Camp Hill, it was packed all the time. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I will say though, sorry, we're getting off this little side tangent here, but coming to a couple of your Central Dolphin games over the last couple of years, the students showed out, and maybe it was like, I think I came to like your last 2 years in a row where it was you guys and Cumberland Valley, so obviously a huge, rivalry there. But man, I mean, the students showed out. I got to give them props. They
yes,
showed out.
And so let me make sure that I give the Ram Mob their props too. Okay, it's different when the building is smaller, and it's more intimate, and
Great
literally. Point. The student section is right on top of when you're taking the ball out and things like that.
Yes.
So, okay.
Great point. Great point.
Okay, guys.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. So in managing all of this, I love that you made that distinction between, small school versus big school. They're just massively different situations.
Yes.
And then having that upfront conversation with the players sounds like, man, that's the most important takeaway, at least so far, that I feel like you've said. So managing the expectations, like, what do you think that parents maybe need to understand? You talked about having a conversation with the players. What can parents understand about coaches' decision-making process about, like, man, we can't play everybody, or we can't keep everybody, especially in this tryouts? It's really difficult, obviously, with the emotions, but what can parents take away?
The biggest thing is every kid has to run their own race. And so what happens is all of the kids in every grade, they're invested in them all growing at the same time, which doesn't happen. And so it goes back to my kids are in middle school. They played, travel ball together. And then one of the kids might be good enough to play freshman. And then everyone else is still going to play junior high, 7th grade or 8th grade. And then that whole thing, well, I want my kid to play 9th grade too, because they've been friends and all of that stuff. So that's one thing. And then when you get to the JV and varsity level, it changes. There were some guys that developed early, and they were, they played a lot as, 9th graders. They played a lot as 10th graders. And then all of a sudden their peers passed them, whether it was skill wise or physically, and it changes. And it is very difficult for parents to see that part of it. And it's okay. Again, the priority for parents are their children. The priority for the coaches is the entire program. How is all of this going to play itself out? And so when we try to be transparent, it's because we want to make sure that there's no surprises. Hey, this is what we're thinking. This is what we're looking at. And I think the challenge is when it's tryout time. At the time that people are watching this, everybody's excited. Well, the excitement is going to go away at some point, because now we have to play real basketball games. Yep. And now there's a rotation that has to happen. But at the varsity level, there's 32 minutes. Okay, if I'm going beyond 8 guys, the rest, there's not a lot of minutes left. And so how does that happen? How do you deal with those things? If I'm playing junior high, whether it's 7th grade, 8th grade, or even the freshman level where the minutes are even more scarce. How does that work? I have another story. My first year at Central Dauphin, we kept a lot of dudes. And so when I say a lot of dudes, I'm going to say more than 12. Okay. I was on the, rainbows and unicorns. We're going to take all of these guys. We're going to develop them. And the guys on the end of the spectrum of it's going to be very difficult to get you minutes. They were great. They understood that this was an opportunity. Some of them didn't get a chance to play in middle school, and so this was an opportunity. And sadly, at some point, there was dissension. Sadly, at some point, there were guys that weren't particularly happy with their roles. And it was tough because moving forward, we're like, hey, we want to keep this guy because we think this dude could turn into something. But then, you think in the back of your mind, but if there isn't complete buy-in, then it becomes a disruption. Then it becomes, why did we do that?
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense. I love that you just said that word, complete buy-in. So it sounds like you're learning along the way as a coach. Like, okay, we've learned, unfortunately, some hard, the hard ways in the past. Like, okay, there can be dissension down the road. And it doesn't mean you don't take chances on certain kids from what it sounds like, but also does make you think like, if we can tell he's not fully bought in, or maybe he's still kind of here for himself, it might not work out. So if it doesn't work out, for certain players, for players that don't make the team, what's next best steps? What kind of conversation you have, and what do you recommend for both the student athlete and the parents?
I think, honestly, depending on what grade they're in, it's never over until it's over. We had a young man that got cut in 7th grade. He got cut in 8th grade. He was in the 10 to 15 on the freshman team. Didn't play a lot as a sophomore on the JV team. Didn't play a lot. Well, he didn't play at all as a junior on the varsity team. And then all of a sudden, due to circumstances, this guy started every game as a senior. Right. And what is the likelihood that will happen? Now, I have to tell you, because I did not see that coming. The summer before, he didn't come to workouts and things like that. And when we did our exit interviews at the end of the season, I talked to him and he said his dad was so big on him having the high school experience and he did not want him to regret walking away, especially after putting so much time in. And so his perspective was just different, even though he was frustrated, disappointed with the fact that throughout the entirety of his time, he didn't get a chance to play a whole lot, but his perspective was different and his parents were in full support of him getting the most out of the experience.
Wow.
And so then that's what it turned into.
Man. Yeah, I feel like that's a rare story. I mean, that's amazing. Such a testament. I mean, like you said, it truly isn't ever over. And if kids have an understanding of, I'm here to get better and I am here to compete at the end of the day and try to, play ahead of the guy in front of me, you can't knock that. That's what it's all about. It's awesome. And the life lessons that teaches. So, man, anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap up here? Anything that we missed?
No, you talked about the life lessons. And I think a little bit we got a chance to talk about it just from the vision and mission of, how I ran my program when I was coaching. And basketball has always been the vehicle. This experience is way bigger than basketball. And that's why when I was coaching 8th grade, I wanted to keep those guys. That's why when my first year at Central Dauphin, I wanted to keep as many people as possible. The challenge is over time, there's less and less buy-in. And so that is when things go off the rails. And so ultimately, the things that everyone needs to consider. So that is the prospective player and their family. So it could be parents, cousins, aunts, uncle, everybody, is truly consider what the opportunity is in front of you at the point that tryouts are done, which is right when you're watching this, and decide, are you going to be fully bought in to what has been presented to you? If you do that and you fully commit yourself to that experience, no matter where it is, and yes, people will say, oh, but this coach doesn't do this and this coach doesn't do that. I'm pretty sure there are lots of detractors from the time that I was coaching, but understand that this is an experience that is going to prepare them for the rest of their lives. And it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be a thing that will always make them feel good, but it is something that will prepare them for the world ahead of them. And if you allow those things to take place, I think good things will wind up happening one way or the other.
Love it. Love it. Man, so well said. I feel like I don't even have much to add other than just kind of recapping a couple of things you said, just reminders for even if, so your son or, daughter did make the team, they made the roster, but, they're kind of in that in between about playing time. There's only 32 minutes or 24 minutes in a game. Not every player can play. And if, again, to your point, if you keep in too many, that actually does hurt a lot of the kids' development. So, I really appreciate what you said. It's just managing expectations and the life lessons that are being a part of something so much bigger than yourself and sacrificing for that. So I love that. That's all I have to add. If you got anything else, let the people know, man. Subscribe, hit the like button below if you're watching on YouTube. I like that when you click the like, little basketball emoji, man, you're all over it. Look at us. Look at us.
Listen, this is still new for us, and already we said we're going to do this every other week, and now you're going to get this a week later. We're excited. This is cool, and we're just trying to give you guys what you're asking for. And so, yes, you should subscribe, because if you're looking for this in 2 weeks, you're not going to get. It's already out. It's out right now.
That's right.
And so, wherever you need to subscribe, please do that. SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube channel, Apple Podcasts. Okay, follow us on the socials, Instagram, TikTok, X, and Facebook. All right, that's what I have. Matt, thank you for the questions. For the
Appreciate
people
you.
who were out there supporting us, our first episode, they really encouraged us to get this information out there as trials are wrapping up. Thank you guys for that. And, if we need to do it again and try to put an episode together just to make sure that we are reaching the people who are following us, we will do it. All right, so thank you very much. And you guys have a great day.